Thank you, everyone, for showing up today for our Gilbert Lake hearing of assessment on May 9th. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we'll call the meeting to order, and first we'll go over the posted meeting notices and notification.
Okay, thank you. In the packet were the notices posted at the appropriate locations, Water Resource and our offices and on the internet, and the notification of the public hearing was published in the paper twice and mailed to the residents. So the meeting is in order.
All right, perfect. And then we'll start with public comment as well. If anyone wants to come on up and talk, you can head up to the podium. Just tell us your name. None? All right. All right, we'll close public comment. Next, we'll go to the business meeting minutes of April 6th. Unless there are any changes or comments, we've all had a chance to look them over. I'd look for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by J.C.
Support.
Support by Clerk Brooke. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That passes. So next, we come to the expenditures. Since last review of April 6th, 2023 through May 4th.
There's a report in the packet as well under tab 5 for the expenditures. Are there any questions? If not, okay.
There's no questions. Could we get a motion for confirming?
So moved.
Motion by Jim.
Support.
Support by J.C. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That does pass. Next is consider the approval to enter into closed session to discuss the attorney-client privilege communication pursuant to MCL 15.268. 1.
H.
Page.
268H.
Oh, H. I should put these on. I'm 50 now. These are the starter drug. They are. As soon as I turn 50. All right. It is an H, not a 1.
I move we go into closed session pursuant to MCL 15.268H.
Motion by Clerk Brooke. Oh, sorry. Motion by Clerk Brooke. Any support?
Support.
Support by J.C. And we'll do the roll call.
I'll call the roll. Ms. Garrison?
Yes.
Mr. Parker? Yes. I am yes as well. Ms. Walsh?
I am yes.
Okay.
So we will head back there, and then we will be back. Motion to come back into session.
So moved.
Motion by J.C. Garrison.
Support.
Support by Clerk Brooke. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, so our next item, unless there's any discussion or a motion or a tabling.
Well, I'd like to do two things.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to remove item 7 and to replace item 7 with a proposal from Advanced Lakefront Services, and to add an item or add a motion to proceed as recommended by the Lake Board Attorney.
So we're tabling 7.
And replacing it with the consideration of a proposal from Advanced Lakefront Services, and adding like a 7 or 7B, 7A, a motion which would be to, proceed as recommended by Lake Board Attorney.
Okay, so 2 separate motions.
Yes.
The replacement, okay. So first, do we have any discussion or a second on tabling 7, the discussion of the seawall, and replacing it with the Advanced Lake Board Services? If there's no support by J.C. Garrison, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, so we will table that, and now we'll go into discussing the consideration of Advanced, is it Advanced Life? What is it?
Lakefront.
Lakefront, okay.
So we would add instead of the item 7 that's on here, would add a new item 7, which would be the discussion of a proposal from Advanced Lakefront Services.
Yep, and that did pass, so we are there now.
So, we're there now.
So we're there now.
Excellent. In material that I distributed to you all here at the meeting is a proposal from Advanced Lakefront Services to enhance the physical weir itself. As you know, we've been engaged in a project to work on the seawall. Seawall project was not on the weir. The weir, after having removed the deck that was over top of it, so it could be reviewed more clearly, revealed some degradation because it's been in place for decades and decades and decades. That needs to be addressed. We received 2 quotes to do this work. The low quote is for $5,144 from Advanced Lakefront Services. And
$51.14.
$5,114, yes. I'm sorry, I don't know. I said something different, I think.
You did. It's okay. For the
Thank you. And that's the item up for discussion, and I would propose that we award that work to Advanced Lakefront Services as the low bidder and subject to legal review and authorization or signature at the discretion of the Lake Board chairperson.
So it's just the steel lid fabrication, not the other?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have any questions, comments, discussion? If not, I'd look for a motion.
Want to allow any members in the public to communicate now, or we just have a question? I don't know if we want to. We're past public comment,
Yeah.
which is normally at the beginning.
The next public comment will be item 11, which is the public hearing. So there's times for public comment. We had the one, and then there's another one coming at 11.
You changed the agenda, so that's all I'm wondering, if now that this agenda's been changed, now can there be public comment on something we didn't know was going to be on the agenda?
I'm okay with it if you.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with it. If you guys, but you have to come up to believe it or not, people watch this. So that way,
Yes.
yeah, this is streamed. They got all your fun stuff up. So that way they'll be able to hear you better.
Have you walking around the room 10 times?
I don't think that, I think then it
No,
was
not
just
while we weren't here.
Yeah.
Will you explain to us what the projected for $5,000, what are they going to accomplish with that money?
Sure, I can answer that question. The proposal is from both entities is essentially the same. The cover that exists currently is degrading. It's a metal plate. A third of it is probably completely rusted away and gone. A third of it is soft and could fall through. The manhole cover spot is rusted away, so the manhole cover no longer fits over the weir. And that's the condition of the metalwork around the weir. The bars in the front, which are for safety before the spillway, are also degrading. Now, the concrete itself is a separate issue, and that's not in this discussion. We're talking only metalwork. The proposal is to fabricate a new top for the spillway, to cut a hole in the spillway top so that the manhole cover fits. Does not fit now, would just fall right through. To extend the cover out into the sort of the spillway area of the seawall, and create a graded top that would open up so that the area could be cleaned, and then add additional safety bars to the front of the seawall. All of those things are intended to repair the structural integrity of the metalwork around the seawall and improve its safety, which I'd recommend doing.
Just curious, how
Can you come back up to?
the next estimate, what was it in comparison to this one?
I do.
One thing we will also always caution is the cheapest is not always who you want to go for, and I think
Yes.
we always go with the most qualified lowest bidder. Sometimes, for example, the lowest bidder may not be qualified.
Oh, there it is. Thank you. Thank you. The other bid was $5,870,
This one is lower.
and the bid from Advanced Lakefront Services is $5,114. And the work is essentially the same.
Have you seen the working?
You come.
Yes.
This is why
yes.
we do all that public
So
comment at once.
Yes, I have. I'm satisfied that that we're choosing the more qualified contractor. Thank you for your questions.
Yeah.
Sure. It's okay with you.
Yeah. I'm just the mean one that makes you go up there.
I just wanted to ask, so this is the metal only, so the concrete of the storm drain is not being repaired, or does it need to be repaired? I just want to know
It is
if we're
not
only
being-
adding half of we're only creating a solution for half of the problem, which is the concrete part too. That was my question. I mean, I don't know, I'm not qualified, I'm just asking, was that examined?
I'm not qualified either, but you and I both looked at the concrete, and we can see it's crumbling around the front of the spillway, not so much at the back of the spillway. Its condition won't impact the ability to perform the metal work that's been proposed that'll improve the metal integrity and the safety. The concrete spillway itself, it's been raised as a question by both of these contractors, but it's not in discussion right now as far as replacing that. It would be a massive project, which would require digging the entire spillway out all the way to the drain, the county drain, through the backyards of many houses.
It's a big project. It's not a spot
It's
project.
not an item we're
It's a-
discussing for this year's budget, or
No, I just want to know, does it,
Can you come up there, please?
so,
My question was, has anyone evaluated whether the concrete needs to be reinforced?
only the eyeballs of you, me, and the two contractors that said, oh, look at that, it looks like it's...
Okay. Because my question is, if we replace the metal and the concrete's deteriorating, it's all going to fall apart? Or
No.
not
So
be
the
stable?
metal-
That's my question, yeah.
The metal work is not contingent upon the issues that we can observe at the front of the spillway on the concrete.
Did both contractors feel that way with
Yes.
the metal work? Okay.
Now, by the way, just as some background about this drain weir, we did some investigation after the last meeting about the weir and ownership of this weir in the spillway. We located the original plat for the neighborhood where the spillway was indicated. It's been reviewed by our engineering department and our lawyers, and it's clear from those that the owner of the spillway is the Gilbert Lake Improvement Board, which is an association. It is not this lake board. And I just wanted to mention that for the record. So this lake board has taken upon some very discrete projects with the agreement of the Lake Association and the homeowners. And the discrete projects is related to the seawall. So the motion, I think, was to award to Advanced Lakefront Services the steel fabrication item of their contract for an amount up to $5,114, subject to legal review and final approval by the lake chairperson.
Motion by Clerk Brooke,
So moved.
support by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That passes. So then we will go on to considering approval of the budget for the fiscal year.
Oh, do we need to do the motion with regard to legal advice?
Oh, that's right, you had a second motion. Can you restate that motion? Sorry.
Yeah, so we also were amending the agenda to add an item, and it would be a motion to proceed as recommended by the Lake Board Attorney.
Proceed on what we discussed.
Proceed on do you have some verbiage you might want to suggest?
Just a motion to proceed as directed for the
Closed session.
closing the permits.
So a motion, therefore, to proceed as recommended by Lake Board Attorney for closing of permits.
Okay. So we have a motion by Clerk Brooke,
Support?
support by J.C. Garrison. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That does pass. And next, we have the budget for the fiscal year.
Yes. Thank you. So there was Tom, are you able to pull that up? Okay, so in the packet was a budget item. Behind, at that time, item number 8. It is a table. And it's outlining some of the items that we're considering at this point for the coming year, and considering with regard to a potential supplemental assessment. So first part of that, which is the work on the lake consistent with prior years for chemical treatments, and those items are in the table behind number 8. Those items are also in the center column there. This is my whiteboard I was working on. Thanks, Tom. The center column there are expenses. Lake treatments are $19,800, $815 actually. And this is up from last year based upon inflation. The regular contractor increased some of the costs. So the similar work last year was $17,025. The work this year would be, we're estimating $19,815. That is supported by the revenue coming this summer from the assessment in place currently. That'll bring in, on the far left-hand column, you'll see $22,000. Work remaining to be done on the project associated with the seawall, which included additional legal fees, permit fees, engineering fees, and other items, necessitated the conversation which comes next about a supplemental assessment. That supplemental assessment would bring in the second number under revenue of $17,800. For a total of $39,800. We're not going back. The fund balance, by the way, presently is $7,900. What we do have, again, back into the expense column, we have yet to pay, besides the $19,800 for lake treatments this summer, there is a $13,070 pending with the current contractor. Those two combined are $32,870. So you can see right away why, we're only bringing in $22,000 in revenue, and that's $10,000, almost $11,000 less than what is committed in some way, shape, or form, arguably for expenses. The column miscellaneous business expenses and other and a $3,000 which are proposed in the budget. On the far right column are additional options that we discussed. Number one was the weir improvements, and that was an item we just discussed a minute ago. Number two is a cost for an estimate we've received for additional riprap and lawn improvements of $8,700. I'm rounding. Sprinkler repairs. We had an estimate of $385, but we know that is low. and it likely is exceeding $800 to work in both of the yards of the residents who are so kind to allow this work to occur through their property. There's two other items that are on the options list here. Number one is we have a quote to replace the deck. The Gilbert Lake Homeowners Association, as my understanding, has placed the deck there many years ago. It had to be removed in order to do the work on the seawall. To replace that deck with a Trex plastic type of material that had all the gates and openings to allow entrance and exits into the Weir spillway and the Weir cleanout area. That number there was $17,000. A sod quote for the yards was also obtained, and that quote was $6,300. Again, I'm rounding both those numbers when I mention it here.
Do they normally sod or just seed?
The work that's normally performed, as I understand it, at the end of this, to satisfy the permits, would be a seeding with a mulch on top, or some sort of fabric cover to help
Because that lasts
hold it in
longer than
place.
sod will.
It will, and significantly cheaper and better,
Yeah, it
last longer,
actually
better lawn.
lasts. The sod, unless you really keep up on it, it's gonna.
Right, dry out and die. And the permits that are issued, Oakland counties and so forth, are contemplating a seeding and mulching solution. Do I have that right, Jim? Have I kind of gone through all of that? And it was a bunch to go through, but
I believe so. There's, the budget, I think, is fairly presented on this. There are some open items and several open items, but I do think that is a good recap of where things are and the open items. And I think there's a desire to get this, obviously the safety enhancements and the seawall compliant with the regulations and everything that has to happen in that regard completed. And then in addition to that, we have to address homeowner repairs, and those are open items, and I think the budget for it is going to be an issue that's going to have to get addressed.
Are there any numbers up there that aren't in here? Are they all not on there? 'Cause this,
there are numbers up there that are not on this chart. The numbers that are up there that are not on that chart are the bottom three on the right-hand side, which are hard to see. I know the riprap, the sprinkler, and the deck. And there's a sod below that. I don't know if you can, there we go. No, actually, the sprinklers are in that number.
oh, they
It's
are?
on your chart, yes. So it's the deck, the riprap, and lawn, and the sod are items that are not in the budget as prepared,
Okay.
and also therefore not in the assessment as prepared.
So these three would be a possible second assessment. You're making noises.
Any number of those three.
Oh, I get nervous.
Or
when
none
you
of those
start
three. I mean, they're all options. They're not, none of those are
Okay.
necessarily things that we need to just do or decide on now. With the present assessment, what we've just approved was the almost $5,200 for the metal work. If you add that to the $32,870, which is the treatments and the arguable contract items for work performed, that gets us to $38,000, just under the $39,000 that we would have if we passed the assessment as proposed. But we would not have the sufficient funds to do additional work with regard to the riprap and the lawn, to the extent that's necessary, or the sod or the deck. Now, we have two options as we go forward here, I mean, because we can't spend any more than we have. You know, we have a little flexibility because there's some money in the fund balance. It's basically about as little as we want in a fund balance, but the purpose of fund balance is to be spent if needed. And then, oh, great, thank you. You can give those to me. I'll take them.
This
Thank
one
you.
is the post with the sprinklers on the top.
Oh, great.
Sprinklers $800 to $1,200. It's sort of chopped off.
Oh, got it, thank you.
They don't know until they go through the sprinklers.
You gotta go up there.
So it was just okay, you can,
First of all, I just want to say that we have beautiful homes that we've kept up very well and spent a lot of the Diamonds and ourselves taking care of our yards, and it's a mess back there. I mean, you would not want to live with that. They did put some grass seed there, and my gardener said, you just don't throw seeds on that. It has to be leveled, and it has to have, as you said, mulch or straw or whatever on top of it. It's got to be, the grass around it's got to be trimmed a certain way so that the seeds will blend in with it. I mean, it's a whole big deal. This is not just throwing seeds on something. The sod, he gave you, I just gave you the thing, he gave us a very high price to do the sod. But this has got, our driveway is a mess because they put all that heavy equipment on it. It was like an oil slick. It's covered with mud. It's better now because of the rain. There's a mess back there. Someone has to take care of that. The two houses that happen to be there shouldn't be the houses that have to bear the expenses of this. It's a repair for the whole lake. So I think that something has to be done to help us get back together. And the guy that did it left. He left stuff all over. He didn't finish I don't know if he's been paid. The guy that did the seawall thing.
there's a remaining balance.
That's
Well,
what-
he shouldn't get it until he
And tabled.
finishes, until he cleans up, and he.
That item was tabled. That's what we tabled.
I understand
Yeah,
that.
so it's not being paid right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope that, that you'll support us because we shouldn't be doing this for the whole lake.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Berlin.
Yeah.
So we could, as far as, now we've talked about the budget, I mean, as far as going forward, we can proceed with review and voting on the supplemental assessment that's been proposed. Or we can, and just proceed with that funding, and that's the funding we have. It's like option number one. The option number two is to add additional expenses to the budget to work on some of the items Mrs. Berlin has mentioned, Ms. Diamond as well, and we could to do that, we have two options. One is we withdraw the assessment that we have now. We calculate a new assessment and start and send new notices for a new meeting in the future. Or two, proceed with the assessment we have now and then develop a second special assessment for the remaining balance of items that the board decides to pay.
Wouldn't both of those options mean a meeting in the future? Like, we're not saving a less meeting by, if we vote on what it is now, we
Both
still
options
need
do.
to, both options require another
Well,
meeting.
option number one, which was just to do the budget as proposed, with the assessment as proposed, with no other meetings or adjustments.
But
for
not
funding.
including other things that
Right.
we,
So that would mean no additional meetings. The ones that, if we were to take up the option items,
Right.
both of those courses require an additional meeting. Yeah, you're right.
what do you feel is the riparian?
As a area representative to this, I'm sympathetic with the homeowners, and I agree with Mrs. Berlin that the whole lake and all of the people who benefit from the lake are benefiting from the work that was done, and the Berlins and the Diamonds and some of the others bore the brunt of having the work done. So there needs to be additional funds ultimately allocated to finish off not only the safety enhancements and DEQ requirements for the seawall, but there's additional work to be done that will benefit the lake board members. Like they said, sitting here today, none of us know which of those options will be chosen or how the budget will finally come to. So with that being said, that's what I see that if I understand the options, is to go forward with the current assessment, knowing that there will essentially be a future assessment to finish off the other requirements, or not do this and just do one larger one at the end. Though that to me seems the two options. Am I right there?
I mean, there is a third one. I personally don't agree with it, because I support what I'm hearing from you guys, that we should be fixing, because it is not fair. Just like you had just said, it's not fair for them to bear the brunt. So that third option I didn't like, where we would just not plan on fixing things.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
Right.
I would have a hard time supporting
Yeah.
that, and I don't see how that would work in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
So, to me, while I don't like, either way, to a degree, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. We're here today. We could get this done. We're going to be here again, addressing an additional assessment. I don't have a personal strong opinion which of those they are, as long as it's clear to the people here and other people who may be listening that we're trying to get this done in the right way, and there are going to be expenses to finish this off that are going to come in the form of this assessment plus an additional special assessment, particularly because we all have agreed that we want to keep the lake treatments and the other status quo items the way they are. So all of this is over and above expenses to the budget, and whether it's going to be special assessment today plus one, or just a large one, and I'm happy to live with either one.
Do we know when we would possibly know if we need to spend this?
I like going with the course run now for the assessment that's been proposed, but provides us the flexibility necessary for some of the work that we need to do. And also, by then entertaining a second assessment, special assessment, I think we probably need another month to figure out exactly what that number needs to be, given some of the items that are still in motion and yet to be completed. So I would, my thought is we go ahead with the assessment present and then work. It's a solid month, because it's a solid month to work on those other items. It could be 2 months to work on those other items, and then the time to send out an assessment is end of August. But a lot of those bills will already come due that we need the special assessment for.
I guess I just want to make sure that if we do go forward with this special assessment, we know that we're coming back for a second one, because we do hopefully plan to make it right. So I would be okay with, I was only going to be leery of going forward with what we had in front of us if the discussion was to not go that way. But I do feel like I've heard that, kind of, I haven't heard from JC yet, but that
agree.
we would make them whole. So I would be okay with that, as long as we know that we're coming back to collect what we need to for that.
Yes, I agree.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay. All right.
So we'll just in quick summary, the options on the right-hand side are the ones that need to be funded through a second special assessment, decided upon and funded through a second special assessment, which will be done as soon as we can resolve the open issues.
So we would vote on the budget and then go into the hearing of assessment to
Yes.
back up the budget?
Yes.
I
So,
think they should go the opposite.
what, they would do
Shouldn't
this
we
back-
normally do the hearing, like find out your funding first and then approve the budget?
No,
guess they're
I
not
think you have to
gonna fight
approve
it,
the
though.
budget.
Okay.
And then approve, and then get the money the budget
Okay.
said we had. Or the budget isn't a commitment to spend, it's a request.
Okay. And I don't think they're going to fight. Okay.
So,
So do we have any more discussion, or would we have anybody prepared to make a motion regarding the budget? I'm sorry. No, I'm so sorry. We need to, no, I think we all understand, and if you've heard, we mentioned it a few times to make sure you knew, we're going to be coming back to make things right and whole, but we have to still vote on what we have before us today, so we do have to keep going. But we will talk after, I promise. Just because we also have to, we have another one. It's on cable, so it's timed. Okay. So do we
that's
have
right.
a motion?
Do you want to make a motion? Or,
I just say, I make a
We
motion.
discussed what would we do, but nobody's made like a full
so I'd make a motion to approve the budget as presented.
Okay, perfect. So we have a motion by Clerk Brooke,
Support?
support by J.C. Garrison. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so now we'll go into the hearing of assessment. We have review the purposes of the hearing of assessment.
Okay, the hearing of assessment is held to review and to hear objections to and confirm a special assessment role for the purpose of improving Gilbert Lake through infrastructure repairs and other treatments for nuisance aquatic plants. And the hearing, as I mentioned previously, that was noticed and published and mailed to the impacted residents.
Then we'll go on to the presentation of the Gilbert Lake supplemental assessment roll.
So in the packet behind item X or 10 is the assessment roll. And indicates the address, parcel number, address, and the owners of the lakefront or riparian properties and the lake access properties, and the amount of the special assessment which would be due for each of those two categories.
And then now we'll open the public hearing for public comment regarding the special assessment. So we'll have the public comment. It's 3 minutes if you want to come up and talk about this special assessment that we're having. Anybody? It has to be about this, though, not general public comment. Is it about this that we're, okay.
I'm under the impression that there's an Oakland County Lake Board, and we're a part of it, right?
No.
Or not? This is a
You
separate...
are your own separate lake board, yeah.
So, just as an example, there is the old deck is sitting there. The new deck is $17,000. There is an old deck, I would think, part of to lessen the assessment that could be used, and maybe it's not going to last as long as the Trek deck, but it's sitting there. The
This
old-
is not part of this, no. This is more of a general, which we will talk about after that, I promise. Those were those items that are being in the next meeting that we're going to talk about, are the sod, the deck, all of that is going to have its own separate meeting.
But they're being assessed for...
The
Not for
assessment
those.
doesn't cover any of those
So
items.
none of those are included at all. They've been tabled to another meeting. That's why why we keep saying not about the deck, sod, or any of that right now.
Could you repeat what the assessment is going to cover?
This,
Yeah.
hold on, wait, what's going on? What is going?
Question.
Okay.
Public comment.
About this assessment.
Well,
Okay.
When somebody comes and fixes something, and they have to take it apart, and they fix it, don't they putting it back together part of the whole job?
If it's in the contract, but again, this is about this assessment. We can talk about the tabled item, which we are not.
What is this assessment? I couldn't hear
This
you.
assessment is just a cover. It does not cover the deck, the sod, the riprap, or the tabled item about the person who didn't finish the job to what you're talking about. So all of that is off the table right now. We'll be at another meeting. We are only talking about the budget that we're voting on, or the assessment to cover the budgeted items that did not include any of those 4 things. So if it's not about sod, riprap, deck, or the current status of the project, that's what we're voting on right now.
The sod,
The sod is not included in what we're talking about right now. That will be at the next meeting. The sod, the deck, the riprap, and the continuation of that project has been tabled.
is that something that was part of fixing the weir?
No,
This is,
it is not part of the contract at all. And that will be discussed at the next meeting. But we're not discussing it during this. This public comment has to be real specific to the other items that we're talking about, not those.
but you're going to give us an assessment on these other items.
Not about the items you're talking about right now, though.
What's the assessment?
For the overall, for everything you do on the lake. So everything, do you want to go over
Sure.
the aqua control or algae control and all of it?
Yes,
It's everything you
it's
do.
the treatments of the lake.
But we do that every year.
Yes, that's what we're voting on, is
cost-
the annual budget.
The cost went up from previous years fairly significantly. And to finish payment of the infrastructure repairs when those are complete, business expenses and such as mailing of the notices and things like that.
That's extra?
Those are all in the assessment we're talking about right now.
That's been done every year, right?
We're voting on your
No.
standard annual costs that are all in the budget that did not include any of the other items that you're all wanting to talk about, but we are not talking about at this meeting.
I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about what the assessment is about. It's about the usual lake
Yes.
treatment?
The assessment is about the increase in cost for the usual lake treatment.
Yeah.
So
The
that increase in cost,
is for what? What's,
the
Because of
the
inflation
same,
or what?
yes.
Inflation.
The same work costs more than it did in previous years.
Yep.
so we're not getting any additional treatment, it's just the same treatment?
Yes,
It costs us more for the same thing?
yes.
That's correct.
Yeah, sadly, ever since the last 3 years, everything has gone up, unfortunately.
We're not asking for additional treatment or less treatment, just the same treatment that we had, and there was a price increase. But
This is why I won't
Yeah.
go to the public, yeah.
Okay, so
So we'll close that public comment.
nobody else for public comment?
So next we have the consider,
you had one.
only if it is not about sod, deck, the project, it has to be about your annual assessment.
I understand. I was just asking because you guys approved the weir, you voted to repair the weir with the metalwork.
Yes.
Is this assessment going to cover the metalwork?
Yes.
Or is that, okay, that's what I wanted.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
Thank you. All right, so next we have consider approval of the resolution confirming the Gilbert Lake supplemental assessment roll.
So behind item 12 is the resolution for the assessment roll and a copy of the assessment roll again, which indicates that riparian owners would have a special assessment. You guys?
Guys, can you please?
So we can finish our
This
meeting?
is really hard to do up here when you can't hear. Sorry.
Thank you. The riparians would pay $272.70, and the non-riparian lake access owners would pay $32.72 for this special supplemental assessment to fund the budget as passed.
Does anyone have any questions of Martin? And if not, I would look for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by J.C. Garrison,
Supported.
support by Jim, what is your last name?
Parker?
Parker. Thank you, Jim Parker. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That does pass. Do we have any other business from previous meetings to discuss?
No.
All right. Then our last motion is to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Motion by Clerk Brooke, support by J.C. Garrison. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That does pass.